Brian Douglas Ellison. I was born June 28, 1973 in Tacoma, Washington. So in high school, I totally thought I was going into journalism as my career. Somewhere in my sophomore year, I started to realize that the 50 or 60 hours a week I was spending at the newspaper were not as rewarding to me as the time I was spending leading a freshman Bible study or teaching a fourth grade Sunday school class. I ended up sort of taking some time away from the newspaper and thinking about that and praying about that, and discerned that maybe journalism wasn't where God was calling me. I graduated from Harvard in 1995 and went directly to Princeton Seminary. Seminary was a time where that call to ministry that I had first felt in college was really confirmed. At the same time, there was something else going on there that I wasn't really able to name or talk about, which was that I was coming to accept what I had known all along but never really admitted to myself, which was that I was gay. I think my working theory in the back of my mind was that I would meet a woman who would sweep me off my feet, or maybe I would just be single my whole life, and I'd be fine with that. And you know, for my first couple of years in ministry, I was fine with that. But of course I wasn't being honest with myself, much less with the church or the congregation I served. The church I served, Parkville Presbyterian Church, which is just outside of Kansas City, Missouri, is a wonderful congregation. In many ways, it was the kind of church I hoped someday to be able to serve, and I got to serve it in my first year. It was theologically diverse. People believed all sorts of things about the issues facing the church, including homosexuality. But they loved each other, and they had a common faith in Jesus Christ that allowed them, even with their disagreements, to worship together and serve together. By this point, I had started to be in a relationship. In 2003, I met Troy, who's my partner now of 12 years. And so I had to make a choice at that point. Do I share this and sort of let the chips fall where they may, regardless of the consequences to the church? Or do I walk away from the congregation, sort of quietly, not tell them why, maybe walk away from ministry? That didn't feel faithful. But it also didn't feel faithful to end my relationship, to say, okay, for the sake of the church, I'm not going to deal honestly with my being gay. What I decided to do was stay, keep serving, and just not talk about my relationship. Troy, who had been out for years, essentially had to sort of take a step back in the closet to be with me. It's incredibly unfair to him. But this was our life for what we thought would be a fairly short amount of time, but in fact lasted until I left that call and started my work with the Covenant Network in 2012. When I came out to the congregation, I came out to them in a letter the same time I had told them I was leaving to become executive director of the Covenant Network. Mostly had wonderful acceptance from the congregation. There were a few families who were upset. But the thing that haunts me, the thing that has really made me think a lot, was the negative reaction from a few people, not because they were conservative about issues of sexuality, but because they were supportive, and because I had not been as honest with them about my life as they had been with me about theirs. And they felt hurt by that. And I get it. As I was starting my work with the Covenant Network, those conversations were a significant part of my motivation for why it was so important that we live fully into this new day in the life of the church where LGBT people can serve. I think a lot of times when we talk about the need for progress in the church, we talk in terms of justice, we talk in terms of inclusion, but it also is a matter of evangelism. It's a matter of being able to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ as good news. And I don't believe anything attracts people to the church and to its message more than the good news itself, than saying that God's love wants to include them. We're at risk of sending a whole generation of people away from the church, saying to them the good news of Jesus Christ is not for you. Because they and their friends and the people who loved and supported them would not feel welcome in a church that portrayed God's love and justice in a way that kept some people away. A part of the Covenant Network's mission, past, present, and future, has been to model a way that we can be church together across lines of difference, including theological differences. We are not fully the church if some portion of God's people don't feel welcome here. And that could be the conservative portion of God's people. I see much to admire in my evangelical brothers and sisters who are still in the denomination, even though they disagree with me strongly about some important things. And that's where I hope we can, I think that does create the place for us to keep moving forward together. Do I want to change their minds? I do. It's part of my work going forward. But I don't say that disrespectfully of the fact that they hold a different view. I'm not being dismissive of their conscience. In fact, it's the opposite. I respect it enough to care about it and want to keep talking about it. History is often about the moments, the achievements, the points on the timeline that mark significant changes or transitions. I think the state of LGBT issues in the Presbyterian Church is not really defined as much as we think it is by those points, by these votes at General Assembly or these changes in the Book of Order. It's defined more by a very slow process. And there are people that are important, there are moments that are important, but it's a growing sense of acceptance, a growing reality of affirmation. So to that extent, I think I'm living history in the ways that the church has formed me and shaped me, and the opportunities I've had in the church to be part of conversations that have formed and shaped others. As a pastor and as executive director of the Covenant Network, maybe in other ways too.